YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we lived in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. One coincidence after another coincidence after another coincidence. I have shown you everything I possibly can to, at the very least, cast doubt in your mind to the narrative that's been given to you by the government. Now, many people out there want to believe that Charlie Kirk was still assassinated, that he was still shot, just not the way the government is telling you, and everybody is getting led down government-created rabbit holes that, of course, the government wants you to go down, because the one notion they don't want you to have is that they actually fake these deaths, they put these people in witness protection, and these people then take on new characters. Because as I've exposed in the past, these people can wear many masks. And this thing with the trap door I'm about to show you is just more, at least, proof that the common person should be suspicious about what they've seen. You can go through all the videos that I've done, okay, including one where Kirk'S behavior is really a good tie-in with taking in the fact that he's not actually dead. Everyone looks at all the other stuff, and then they're not looking at the behavior surrounding it, because Kirk'S behavior is not of a grieving widow. It is of a government agent who is now taking on a new role as the leader, the female leader of the MAGA movement, the new CEO of Turning Point USA. And of course, that's the video that they removed off of YouTube that many people needed to see, but that video is obviously available on the website. So the one narrative they don't want out there with conspiracies is the fact that Charlie Kirk is very well alive. And this is a headline from CNN News before I show you this trapdoor, which is just another coincidence. The worst I've seen. Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories explode online from the left and the right. And again, this is going to tie into misinformation, who can say what online, how misinformation, when it spreads, can be dangerous. They could even have a false flag surrounding the actual assassination of Charlie Kirk to make people believe that misinformation and conspiracy theories could lead to domestic terrorism. But when you read this article from CNN, it's just a perfect example, because they're putting on their platform, their CNN platform, which is a large platform, they're putting all the fake conspiracies out there. But the one they leave out is the actual faking of Charlie Kirk's death. They put, the avalanche of unverified and unhinged claims from online influencers, podcasters, and grifters is now commonplace after any shocking news event or mass shooting. Trump allies like Steve Bannon have pushed the idea that Kirk was killed as part of a broad national conspiracy, even though investigators said they believe the suspect, Tyler Robinson, acted alone. Liberal pundits have argued that Robinson was on Kirk's political right, despite mounting evidence that he disliked Kirk's conservative views. Others, leaning on anti-Semitic tropes, claimed Israel spies murdered Kirk because he was starting to stray from his long-standing support for Israel. And of course, that's the narrative they want out there. Anti-Semitic theories blame Israel because we're going to get more censorship against speaking against the state of Israel. And you're going to get, obviously, more sympathy garnered towards Israel, maybe even a false flag towards another synagogue or another false flag event at what I should call the synagogue of Satan, so to speak. So inside of this article, all it's talking about is the anti-Semitic theories, which I've already talked about, that they want out there, that they have the alt-right pushing, about the Mossad going after one of their own, that he was speaking against Israel. Nobody was more pro-Israel than Charlie Kirk. And then the other thing is how liberals are pinning it on right-wingers. And this is where the censorship came in with Jimmy Kimmel. So you go through the articles that are out there from the mainstream. They want to bring attention to conspiracies. They don't want to give you the actual truth in any of the conspiracies. They don't want to bring up any of the stuff that I'm talking about on this channel, and people who are actually awake and have been awake for the last 20 years or so have been talking about the news is a simulation, how the news is manufactured to engineer you. And the behavior you're seeing right now is the reaction to manufactured news. how unhinged one side is, how unhinged the other side is. Now we have people canceling one another, people losing jobs, people getting doxxed, all because a disagreement about whether or not they like the person, whether or not they think he should have died or not. All just thought police nonsense, which is bringing about more and more online censorship. So, that being said, we've had all these coincidences, right? The crime scene, how it was completely covered up, right? We had, like I said, any actual crime is committed. Watch any crime show for 3 minutes. Okay, they talk about contamination of a crime scene. They tell people even on 911 calls, if there's a shooting, don't touch the body, right? Because you could contaminate the evidence and your fingerprints are on the body and that you might be a suspect, right? Just get away. Don't touch or contaminate anything. Well, they did more than just that and tell people to get away. In fact, they didn't tell anyone to get away. They just said, hey, you can roam around this area because we're going to completely demolish it within a few hours, and then we're going to put pavers and concrete all over it so that there's no evidence whatsoever. And it's not like there's actual real evidence there. There's not guts of Charlie Kirk, and that's the point. Nobody would be able to find any real evidence, but the government can't clean every blade of grass, so if people want to get down on their hands and knees and find fragments in the grass, they might actually find blood that they could get from Party City or Party Fair. So all the coincidence that we've seen with the behavior, with the numerology, with Freemasonry, how they wanted you to know about the 33-hour manhunt, how fake the footage looked, the blood squib and the shirt, popping up, all this stuff. Look at this one. You may have noticed this is the area that Charlie Kirk was shot, right? This is a picture beforehand of the grassy knoll, so to speak, that Charlie Kirk was shot on. And you look at those things, you might think that they're actually sewers or something like what, you're not quite sure what they are. But while they were doing this operation here and making sure they paved up the entire area, they opened one of these things and you can actually see that it's a trap door. That's right, a trap door. It's not an opening where there's a little panel underneath to put on the sprinklers or something like that. It is a trap door. So conveniently, Charlie Kirk, his whole speech was set up and the stage was over a trap door. Now, you might say, well, what's the purpose of the trap door? Well, many purposes can be served. When we were talking about the blood squib running up through his shirt, well, you could have had it run right down through there, right? Instead of having a giant tank behind him that shot blood out. Or you could look at it and you could say when Charlie Kirk fell to the ground, was Charlie Kirk's body brought underground? And then was something else carried that we saw the footage in the parking lot where these men were running with what looked like a body where there was no blood dripping underneath and none of these men appeared to be covered in blood? Charlie Kirk could have been brought right underground. And then exited stage left, and then we saw a mannequin or something that they pulled out from underneath the table and carried out and made you think that they were carrying it out to the car. And of course, there was no ambulance. Don't be suspicious of that. Here's even aerial shots where you can see where this trap door is. And it's not unusual on a stage to have a door underneath. If you go to concerts or anything like that, if you've ever been on those types of stages, there are doors underneath to get into these underground tunnels, to get underground. That's normal. For whatever reason, they do these things, right? In case, you see some of the wrestling shows, right? Guys pop up from underneath the ground. That's normal in stadiums. They have underground doors that lead to underground tunnels. There's trap doors. It's a little bit weird in the middle of a courtyard on a college campus to have one because it's not like Aerosmith or some big performance is going to take place there. But nonetheless, they have a trap door. And that's where he spoke. That was the campus that this event had to take place on, because other times when we see Charlie Kirk speak, it doesn't look like there's being a location with a trapdoor. Sometimes he's outside of a food court. Sometimes he's in the middle of an auditorium, where it doesn't mean auditoriums have trapdoors. But this specific location happened to conveniently have a trapdoor. And they weren't hiding it. Look at all this footage of the trapdoor completely wide open. So think about that. He falls off the chair. The next thing you see is Charlie Kirk falling down and then men carrying him to a black SUV. And that's the end of it. 5 minutes later, hour later, you get message from the President of the United States telling you that he's dead. Somehow he's the one who confirms his death. So they easily could have brought him down underneath here. Now, I don't know exactly where this leads. I've not been to this university and studied the underground spectrum there. But I can guarantee you that there's underground there, and there's probably a door somewhere to exit quietly where nobody would see you and nobody would pay attention. Maybe pop a wig on him and then have him just walk out to a car and head to Valhalla or wherever Charlie Kirk actually went. Now, the other thing I want to point out real quick is when we talk about the evidence in the crime scene, this is pretty funny. This photo has been, out there where you could see a table and you could see this small amount of blood splatter this party fair blood, and you see the chair that Charlie Kirk supposedly was sitting in, right? And you'd say to yourself, well, okay, this is a crime scene, right? Well, not to this guy, who, again, I showed you the other day. Look at this footage here. I'll play it now. Okay, this guy, there's the chair on the ground. This is the guy who took the camera down off of the wall. He picks up the chair. Now, I would assume, okay, I'm not, Magnum PI or Columbo here, but I would think that maybe the chair would be something that you wouldn't touch, since it was what he was sitting in when he supposedly died. Not only did he pick up the chair, he stood on the chair so that he could go up and take down a camera and remove what appears to be an SD card or some type of, something out of it. Some people speculate that that's where the bullet actually came from, right? Because again, that's the narrative that they want out there. They want the narrative out there that he was actually shot. The government covered it up because Charlie Kirk was onto something bigger. He was going to expose something. And that adds to the psychosis. That's the problem. When you believe, we can look at him and we say, look, nobody out there, none of the people out there who are crying over it, they don't know him. They've never met him. They've just watched his podcast. So they think that they know him. They think that they're friends with him, right? But the belief that he was actually killed by somebody fuels the fire. The belief and understanding that he's actually still alive and you've been duped would make people understand. Well, why would they fake his death? Wait a minute. Now I can see why they would fake his death. Look how people are responding. Within a week, we have the conservatives doing the same thing the Democrats did and canceling out free speech. The government redefining what misinformation is, talking about how now, look how we're even getting with hate speech and information speech, where it's assumed by Jimmy Kimmel that he was assuming that a right-winger was the shooter. The shooter was actually a Republican voter. And that's what got his show canceled. He didn't go on the TV and say, hey, everybody, I'm so glad Charlie Kirk got shot. I'm glad he's dead. I hate him. What did he say? He just said that, but it's likely that the guy who shot him is one of their own. And that got his show canceled. Do you see where we're headed with that? We're beyond the whole celebration and cheering now. Now we're moving into another, just even nitpicking even more. You said that we did it when we didn't. Well, that's a crime. You'll lose your job. How dare you accuse? And it just continues to go down and down and down to the point where you can't question anything. You can't say anything that's against what the news media tells you. And that's what they've done. That's what they've wanted with Alex Jones and Sandy Hook. Do not look at the news as a simulation. This whole article that's out there's more proof. How can you question news? Do not question the news. We tell you that this is fact. It's fact. You take it as fact. That's it. That's the end of the story. That's the point. That's the prerogative here. The mindset that people have that believing the news is actually being given to them because journalists are reporting on a real event. That's what keeps you in the psychosis. When you realize that it's not a real event, that the government carries these out, no different than a movie production in real time in front of real people. Then you'd say to yourself, oh, well, I don't really care then of these characters. I'm not emotionally invested. I don't care about gun control because none of these events were actually real. And I don't want free speech removed because all these other events that are occurring, you're telling me that free speech was responsible for doing this. So then I'm starting to think to myself, well, maybe we need to remove conspiracy theorists. Maybe we remove that because they're dangerous. The whole thing blows up when you realize that the news is scripted and manufactured, right? It's the old saying. What is it? Your home is a factory. The product being manufactured is you. And until you break away from the news and you realize that the government is giving you conspiracies, they're feeding it now because they know that people like this stuff. So the alt-right media is running with it. Steve Bannon, Candace Owens, all controlled up. Alex Jones, who's really behind? Then they're going to talk about this over and over, and they're going to bring you into another rabbit hole. And now all these people who are down the Epstein rabbit hole are going to pivot from that. And of course, pivot away from all the stuff they should be figuring out with the Epstein rabbit hole, which is about eugenics and what was really going on there with the Bill Gateses of the world. Yes, they were involved in pedophilia, but it was deeper than that. This is where the transhumanist experiments were taking place, the ones that they're about to do and already doing on the public. Getting the mix of iron and clay, getting this tech underneath your skin. The same things we're hearing publicly being accepted, like Neuralink and everything else. Right? That's a lot of the stuff that was going on there. They were grooming kids. They were looking to create the perfect race. They were breeding with kids. But this is what happens in covens. It's not just Epstein Island. This is what witches do. You know how many children are born without identities, names, or Jane and John Does that you'll never know actually exist because they're born into trafficking because these covens breed them for rituals and then ritual sacrifice? It's insanity, right? But all those people who were down that rabbit hole now pivoted to this rabbit hole. Here's the government feeding you another one. it was Mossad, right? So then we could bring in more censorship of speech online because we'll never tell you it was Mossad. We'll just tell you it's Tyler Robinson. We'll have a trial, and then you'll all think it's Mossad, and then we'll say it's dangerous because now people out there hearing conspiracy theories about Mossad, and they're going after Jewish people, and now we need to censor more speech towards anti-Semitism, right? That's how it works. That's how their game works. And these people fall for it hook, line, and sinker because the government feeds it to them. And then when they tell you stuff like this, when you see an article like that on CNN, you should look at it and you say to yourself, well, if this is a conspiracy that I believe in, and now CNN is blasting it out there, maybe I'm going down the wrong road here. That seems like what they want everyone to know about it. They wouldn't bring it up. They wouldn't bring this notion of the Mossad up and how the Jewish, it was Charlie Kirk was speaking against Jews. They wouldn't bring it up. They wouldn't mention it to the national public, the common sheeple, unless they wanted those people to even have that ingrained in their head. Now they're ingraining that because they're probably going to lead to another false flag. So the trap door is just another coincidence, right? That he was just on top of a trap door because remember, we didn't see the body get, all you really see is him go down out of the chair and then whoosh, you're in the parking lot, right? A lot of missing time, there. Where a lot of people weren't, at least that's footage that you're not going to see much of out there. Just people running around and things like that. So you have a trap door, which explains how much easier, that's what it explains, how much easier it is for Charlie Kirk to escape unknown. Because everybody's looking, we're all looking at the footage of him going SUV and we're saying that that's wrong and there's not even blood trail. We don't even know if he went in the SUV. Now that there's a trap door underneath, he could have just went down a tunnel. Put a mask on. I've shown you these CIA masks. Everyone's like, oh, put a mask on like Mission Impossible. Yeah, exactly right. You only say that and think and dismiss the notion of them wearing masks because you see movies like Mission Impossible, so you think it's fiction. But if you actually research the CIA masks and see what they were doing in the 70s and 80s and how you would never be able to identify that somebody was wearing a mask, and just imagine what they can do now. Right? Pop a mask on. He's probably out in the crowd watching. Right? Because remember, one of the things they love is they love watching how people respond to their deaths and the worship and the crying and the tears. People are sick. They're narcissists. He was probably out there with a soda watching the response of the people and then walking off and living his new life. And again, people comment, this is the world we live in, right? People comment just based on the title of the video. They don't even listen to the video. So I get a lot of comments. I'm used to this. I've been doing this a long time. So none of it really bothers me, but I just shake my head because I'm just like, sheeple is as sheeple does. But they're like, what about his wife and his kids? You're telling me that they're in on it too. You actually look at the behavior of his wife after the fact. Look at his behavior with his wife out in public. I mean, we talk about Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and all these arranged marriages and relationships. You couldn't look at one that's more fake than this. Okay, and I'm going to go into more detail about it in a separate video because there's even more stuff coming out now about Erica Kirk. But the behavior of Erica Kirk is enough of a giveaway to say, okay, maybe they weren't married from the get-go. Maybe these aren't really their kids. And again, the notion of, they're not their kids. What do they rent kids? Well, every Republican out there believes that Michelle Obama's a man, and they're right. Okay, so you think that, how did they have kids? Did the kids come out of Michelle's penis? Of course not. So who are they? Oh, they were actors. Right. That's how it works. Okay? So you look at the behavior of her. That's should be the check in the box that makes you go, okay, the behavior makes me think that nothing even occurred, that they weren't even married in the first place, right? Because that's how she's acting, as if somebody who wasn't married. Fake tears, laying against the coffin to try to make you think she's so upset. It's over the top. It's so over the top that's actually helped the most in people looking at this event as being fake. So they've kind of pulled back a little bit over the last couple of days because I've even seen people come over, criticize videos, and then come back and been like, the stuff with the wife, I mean, that's a lot to take in. I mean, it's as fake gets. It's like watching a D-level horror movie. I mean, it's brutal. Fake tears, and then the pep rally speech, right? That sums it up. That's where her mind's at, not her kids. Pep rally. Let me get to MAGA. Let me get to Turning Point. Let me get in his office. Bring in the emotions. Let me start pumping people up that we're coming for you. We're fighting. Well, people went, it's a little strange 2 days after witnessing your husband supposedly get shot, right? Because it was all over the news. Everyone could see the footage, right? Yeah, this is not how people react in real life traumatic events. So we got a trap door to add to the list, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you all for being here, and I hope you are all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.